A new survey from Goldman Sachs reveals 20% of small business owners are undecided when it comes to this November's presidential election. The survey gives a glimpse into the anxieties that small business owners they're feeling in the face of rising costs and inflation. Joining me now in studio, we have Asahi Pompey, who is the Goldman Sachs Global Head of Corporate Engagement, plus small business owner Geraldine Keogh, who is the owner of Dessert Ladies and Mien's Chocolate Centerpieces. Great to have you here this morning with us, and thanks so much for taking the time.
Great to be with you.
Absolutely. Let's dive into some of the survey results here, because this is really remarkable how many small business owners are really monitoring the impacts of inflation on their business and where that's also going to play into their decision going into November. Let's start off with some of the findings of the survey. What stuck out to you here?
Sure. First and foremost is around inflation, as you mentioned. Small business owners are feeling the bite of inflation. 71% of them say that inflationary pressures have actually increased in the last 3 months. And as we double clicked on the drivers of that increase, we see the cost of rent has gone up, the cost of labor has gone up, the cost of goods and services have gone up. And I think, Brad, one important thing to underscore is at that intersection of inflation and small business is that small businesses feel the impact of inflation first, and they are relieved of it last. And so the cause of that is because they don't have the access to capital and the scale to really absorb those inflationary shocks. And so they feel the hangover of inflation far longer, which I'm sure Geraldine will attest to.
Absolutely.
And certainly one of those inputs as well for the business costs and the cost of goods sold that you have to consider is what the employment situation looks like too. I mean, wages being higher, and year over year, as we're thinking about what this employment and labor environment looks like, that makes it for small businesses harder to make sure that you're attracting and retaining talent as well to put a good or service out into the market.
100%, yeah. And we also, as small business owners, we feel very acutely the stresses that our employees are going under because of inflation, pressures. So we feel like we need to be able to answer that to a little bit to relieve their stress, because when they're doing well, we get a good product. Everything works. So that has been a big issue for us, labor costs, as many others. To be quite honest, it's been a rough, rough couple of years coming out of the pandemic. But right now with inflation, we call it death by 1,000 cuts, because just about everything is going up. The cost of raw materials, chocolate in my business up 15% this year, following a raise of 11% last year. That's a lot, and that is something that people buy with their excess income. And when that is cut, then that really does affect people in our industry. And it's a big billion-dollar industry, but it's we feel it at the very core level. Cost of labor, as I said, and then cost of raw materials in general. Just about everything we buy has increased dramatically, and then we are left with the situation: how much of this can we pass on to the consumer? Because before we hit that threshold where they just don't buy anything, and we try to navigate that space very distinctly.
To what extent are you seeing consumers push back right now on pricing that you do need to pass on?
Yeah. We find that the pivot to help them still buy, but buy less and buy smart is a big thing that, a strategy that we've employed in our businesses. And everything, it's not just the individual consumer, it's corporations that we're seeing this happen to as well, which is an interesting turn of events. Large corporations are also cutting their budgets and what they did. And, so we try to pivot with that and just offer better value and more ideas and, just a better way for them to be able to meet their needs.
A lot of small businesses like Geraldine's trying to figure out, okay, where do we see that infusion of capital if it's not coming in from the consumer that's willing to spend up and drive some of those profit margins that we may have been accustomed to previously and in past economic cycles. Where does that relationship with a major institution like Goldman Sachs step into play?
Well, certainly our educational program, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, is really infusing the sort of finance modules, operations modules to really help business owners navigate. And Geraldine is, of course, one of the graduates of the program. But also our Voices platform. We know that the private sector can do its part, business owners can do their part, but we need policymakers as as well to enact policies that are beneficial to small business owners who employ 61 million Americans. Now, what's interesting, as Geraldine noted in terms of price increases, is that our data shows that 50% of small business owners have been forced to increase their prices to really buttress the inflationary pressure. So they're a bit between a rock and a hard place, because when you increase prices, you're at risk of your profit margins, because how much are customers going to keep buying as the prices go up? So it's a really tough situation for our small business owners.
You mentioned, and we kind of teased the top of this conversation with November and the general election, and how small business owners are thinking about their vote as it relates to agendas and policies that will be put forward and be able to be enacted that will positively affect small businesses out there. Is there a core message or a core agenda or policy that will move the needle for small business owners?
Well, you are touching on the key issue. Now, to level set, according to Gallup, small businesses are the most trusted group in America. More trusted than the church, more trusted than the military, more trusted than every single branch of government. So this is a tremendously strong base. Now, 96% of them say they plan to vote in November. So that's an interesting area that we should all focus on. Here's the issue. As you said, 1 in 5 of them are undecided. Now, why are they undecided? Here's what it comes down to. Neither party is talking enough about the exact question that you asked: small business policy. Small business owners are left wondering, who's got my best interest at mind? Because I'm not hearing any discussion about the things that keep me up at night. Regulatory policy, tax policy, reducing the bureaucracy around running a small business, access to capital, which is so critical. So what I'd say the message is loud and clear from our 10,000 small businesses community is that talk about the issues that matter to small businesses, because small businesses are going to be the swing vote potentially in this election.
Yeah, certainly. And Geraldine, I saw you nodding your head there a moment ago. Just
absolutely, and 100%. When our politicians and our lawmakers get involved with small businesses and they talk to us and they ask us, what kind of support do we need? It's going to have an immediate impact on the local economy. When we are doing well, we're hiring people. We are all good to go. Everybody is, we're all firing on the same channels, but nobody's talking to us right now. I'm one of the undecided, I'll be honest, and I don't feel like we're being heard. Nobody's talking to us as to what can they help with, what can they prioritize. Obviously working on inflation would be huge, but we're not hearing it. There's so many other issues going on right now we can make as small business owners, we can make a direct impact to your local community that you serve. If you would talk to us and talk to other small businesses. On the weekend, go and stop in somewhere and ask the hard questions. How are you doing? What can I help with?
And sometimes
how can I support you?
It starts there. How are you doing as a small business owner? And especially as a customer, we can all do that. And it's very low-hanging fruit for us to do, just checking in on some of our local community small business owners. And many of us, our first jobs were in small businesses. I can attest to that. Thank you so much for joining us here today as well. We appreciate Asahi Pompey, who is the Goldman Sachs Global Head of Corporate Engagement, and small business owner Geraldine Keogh, owner of Dessert Ladies, NBN's chocolate centerpieces. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.